When my mother-in-law was young and growing up on a plantain farm in the Caribbean, she had an uncle who was smitten with a neighbor girl. The uncle and the girl had grown up together, had been the best of friends, and he wanted her like no other. She said all he had to do was ask, but the poor guy was so nervous. One day they both strolled into town together. The town bully sees her at the market, compliments her unfavorably, and demands he take her out, because the town knows he always gets his way. The uncle objects, to which the bully says he'll follow them home and harass her until she agrees and spread lies about the uncle. The neighbor girl tells my uncle some days later that she'll go with the bully to stop the harassment. He tells her his dreams and says his piece to her, and she agrees that they'll be together forever after that night. She goes that night and is never seen alive again. A week later, news comes out that parts of the missing girl are found in a local pig pen. About the same time, rumors of the bully being involved are circulating. The bully neither denies nor admits doing it. An investigation is opened, but the bully seems to have numerous airtight alibis, so he's let go, but closely watched. My uncle confronts the town bully about where the girl might be. The bully said he didn't know, but invites his uncle to a card game that coming weekend to bury the hatchet about all this. And my uncle agrees. The rest of the week, he hears rumors of the bully bragging that he was involved. He tells his family the news, and they were very saddened. His mother advises him against any revenge, but says that she would stand by any decision. My uncle drives to the card game, wins a decent amount, and offers to take the bully out on the town since my uncle had the money now. The bully gets wasted, starts passing out in my uncle's car, and proceeds to talk incoherently about the girl's disappearance. He goes on about how she wanted to pet the pigs, but he said only if she kisses him. And when they get to the pig farm, she refuses and says she wants to go home. But he had other plans. He knocks her out, assaults her, and feeds her to the pigs. My uncle is furious. He drives the bully to the closest pig farm and proceeds to use the hatchet that he always kept in his trunk to bludgeon and dismember that bully, and then feed him to the pigs. My uncle then drives as fast as he can to the family farm, where he tells his mother. She tells him to put his clothes in a burn barrel and she would meet him at the river. Right after, she took the hatchet and buried it deep in a random plantain trunk. Then he got into bed with all the kids and pretended to sleep. That night, the police came knocking, asking to speak with my uncle, since he was last seen with the bully. They said the bully was found the same way the girl had been. They knew of the uncle's affection, and they wanted to know if he was involved. His mother tells the cops that my uncle came straight home right after the card game, and the community could vouch for him because he was part of a local festival. The cops left empty-handed, but opened an investigation the following week. My uncle was questioned, the local community was questioned, but my uncle had numerous airtight alibis, even an alibi from the next town over from a guy that my uncle never met. I think small-town justice is something that probably happened a lot more than people realize, especially back in the old days. Super especially back before the time of internet, phones, and electronic records. I think sometimes town people will just decide, hey, this person needs to die, and they just take care of it. Our next Reddit post is from FC. My grandfather grew up in a rural Peruvian town where only his family lived, very isolated from others. They lived about a half hour away from the nearest town. This story happened sometime in the 1940s. As one would assume, everyone was close. This story is about one of my grandfather's many cousins, Mary, who was 20, and her husband Peter, who was 25. Mary's dad went away to work in the capital for a while, taking Mary with him. There, she met Peter, fell in love, and married. They returned to town a couple of months after they wed. They rented a room at the local saloon where Peter worked with Mary's dad, selling goods in neighboring towns to save money. Turns out, Peter was a butthole. Not only did he cheat on Mary while he was away working, but he also severely beat her when he was home. Eventually, the owner of the saloon, a distant cousin of Mary, noticed this. The owner was about 50 years old. He confronted Mary, and after a lot of prodding, she admitted to everything. She hadn't confessed before because her close family, especially her dad, opposed the marriage, and she was ashamed to admit that Peter was an abuser. Well, she wouldn't have to suffer much longer because the owner would take matters into his own hands. He liked to play a prank on newcomers. He would take them to a field a half hour away to hunt what he claimed was the most delicious bird he had ever tasted. Spoiler alert, the bird did not exist. He called it a funny name I can't remember, so I'll just call it Birdie. He would leave them in the middle of a field with a net while he went to chase the birdie into the net. He would then walk back to town while the newcomer was kept waiting for the birdie. Eventually, the newcomer would return to town and be mocked and laughed at for buying the story. Just some good old rural town fun. The owner had yet to prank Peter because Peter was mostly away working. However, not long after, an opportunity presented itself. He was able to lead Peter away with the same story as always, but he didn't play the prank on him. Instead, he led him to a field 1.5 hours away, got him drunk on the way, and then pushed him into a nearby lake where he drowned. He then returned to town, claiming Peter had actually wanted to hunt the birds, not just wait around. And it was hard to convince him otherwise, as a way to excuse his tardiness. Peter's disappearance was noticed the next day by Mary's dad when he didn't show up to his house or work, and when he wasn't in the rented room. The owner gave his excuse, and the others at the saloon and his wife corroborated the story. A few days later, Peter was found drowned in the lake. It was concluded that while waiting for the birdies, he'd gotten drunk, and when he attempted to return to town, he had gotten lost and fallen into the lake. Unlike her husband, Mary's life ended on a happy note. She remarried to a much nicer man, had 8 children, and bought a house in the capital where she lived until she died of cancer in 2003. The amazing owner also had a happy life, and he died in the late 1970s. My grandfather only knew this story because he overheard the owner tell Mary's dad the true story. Apart from him, no one else but the 3 of them knew. He told me one day because I was asking about secrets from his small town. Yeah, I like gossip. Our next Reddit post is from What's My Name? At the time of the story, I was 20 years old and dated my first true love. We had been together for 1.5 years and everything was just great. Her mother really liked me, and she had her own company which traded fashion clothes for kids, and she made tons of money. They needed someone to drive one of their 3.5-ton trucks, and she came up with an idea to hire me. Because I was unhappy with the job that I had, so it was a win-win situation. I accepted her offer and we started working together. The job was okay, even though I had to work a huge amount of overtime, because she thoroughly introduced me to how the whole company worked. She had a huge storage facility, a store, and 2 trucks. The truck that I drove and a bigger one. I worked for her for like 1 year, and during that time I learned every single thing about the company, because she trusted me with all the dirty secrets. This is where things took a huge turn. I found out that my girlfriend cheated on me with her ex, and as a result, I broke up with her instantly. It was an ugly situation, and after it went down, I called her mother and told her what was going on. I said that I don't want to mix things with business, so I would still be there for work, even though I don't want to see her daughter again. She said that everything was all right, but of course she sided with her daughter. And I felt that she was mad at me because of the breakup. I went to work and acted as professional as I could. I set all the drama aside. However, soon after, she singled me out and started looking for mistakes so that she could discipline me. This had been going on for months, and I realized that she had been waiting for an excuse to fire me. But I wasn't going to give her that reason so easily. She was pissed that she couldn't find big mistakes, and the small ones she often just made up weren't enough to terminate me. So she came up with a plan. On the truck, we had a power generator which provided light and power for a laptop, a printer, and so on. It worked in 2 ways, with fuel when we were on the road, and with cable in case we were at the storage. But it wasn't made by the company. They just hired an electrician for that, and he made an error. So we had to flip a switch all the time if we used it with the cable connection. Otherwise, it would burn down. As I loaded the truck, she convinced a coworker to flip the switch back. After a few minutes, the lights were gone, and I noticed something was wrong. The generator burned out, of course, but I knew I didn't forget the switch because I had loaded the truck for an hour, and it only took 5 minutes tops to burn out. So it couldn't have been me. She didn't even hear me out. She just started yelling and fired me on the spot, and said that she was going to pay for the repairs out of my last paycheck, so don't expect any more money from her. I didn't take that lightly and told her, I don't think you want to go that way with me. But she refused to listen. It took a few days for me to cool down, but I wanted to give her a last chance. I called her and told her that even though I know what's going on and that she did set me up, if I get my money, I'll just consider this over with and we don't have to see each other again. She told me to fuck off, so I came up with a plan. First, I knew the store she had didn't have a bathroom, which was illegal in my country, so I reported this to the authorities. The next day, they closed the shop because of this violation, and they told her that she can't open it up until they have a bathroom. She called me right away and asked me if I had anything to do with this. I laughed and told her, "Didn't I tell you that you don't want to go this way with me?" And I hung up. I knew that me and the other truck driver had tons of overtime on the books, so I called the authorities again and told them everything. The authorities checked all the records and gave her company a brutal fine. She sent me obscene text messages all day long after that, but I replied, "I ain't done yet." Then silence. A few hours went by and my phone rang. She called and asked me if we could talk it over. She even said that she sent me my last paycheck. But I shut her down immediately and told her, too late for that. I called the fire department and told them that the wires they had in the walls of the store were outdated, which caused short circuits daily, and that they only have 2 fire extinguishers for the whole place when they should have like 12. On that very day, they had to close the storage as well, so she lost the last place where she could make money for months, until getting everything up to date and renewing all the wires, which cost a huge amount of money. Because of all the fines that she got from the different authorities, she couldn't afford these renovations. Of course, a few months later, she filed for bankruptcy. I know because my ex-girlfriend called me with, "I hope you're happy, you butthole. You made my family bankrupt." I never got my paycheck, but at that point, I didn't even care anymore. I was happy with the outcome. Well, I can see where OP's girlfriend inherited her morals from.